I'm Tim van der Wiel, and I'm going to tell you something today about brand building in a user-first world. And I'm super excited to be here. It's not my first time at OnBrand. I think the first time here was in the smallest room somewhere in the back when we just started with Go Spooky. I think it's 5 years ago now. Last week we've had our 5th anniversary. About Go Spooky, what we do, we keep leading brands at the forefront of social media, and we do that with a team of 70 super talented people. And we have this radical approach on social media. We think that social media should be the start of a campaign. There's where the attention is. And we do this for brands like Coca-Cola, JBL, Amazon, and Snapchat. And I'm here today to tell you something about something that you might already know, and that is that social media has become the remote control of our lives. I think if you look at social media, most of the apps, we most use 6 to 8 apps daily on our phones on average. And if you look at those apps, most of them are social apps. So this is not only about the younger demographic. This is also your 65-year-old neighbor that is making selfies and posting it online. So I'm not here today to tell you about how big social has become. Social is now not only a place where we do have discovery and inspiration and do about communication. We also have new tools like augmented reality, shopping, e-commerce, and even full customer service. So you see that social is becoming this place where a lot of the customer journey happens. And as I told, I'm not here today to talk about how big social has become, but I'd rather talk about how social plays such a big part in building an actual business. At the same time, you see that the average lifetime of Fortune 500 companies and brands is declining. And it's declining fast. If you compare it to, it was 74 years in 1955, and now it's today it's 15 years. Bottom line, a lot of brands are not growing anymore. At the same time, you see a lot smaller companies, a couple smaller brands, and I think if you're a big brand, it's smart to really look at these smaller companies, to look at it and take a page out of their book. So I know you all just had maybe at your lunch, or you're just eating a sandwich right now behind your computer, but I just want to mention, I really want to emphasize on this. This is serious business. This is not about whether you should be on Facebook or on TikTok or on Snapchat or what's the latest feature on whatever platform. This is about building business. It's about losing or winning in business. And that's why I'm here today to talk to you about building a brand in a user-first world. If social media has the remote control of our lives, an extension of the consumer, then social media isn't just a way to reach consumers. It's really a new digital economy, and as a brand, and as a big brand, you need a new approach to fit in. So at Go Spooky, we work with 3 principles, and those I want to share with you today. I believe that these 3 principles is the core should be the core of your strategy when you want to be successful on these platforms. Starting with the first one, focusing on community. We have left the attention economy. Social and these platforms, it isn't about paying for eyeballs anymore. We are now in the community economy. So instead of paying for eyeballs, it's now about earning the love and trust of your audience, of your community. The traditional push of media and content isn't enough anymore. And if you look at some of the biggest thriving brands right now, if you look at those smaller companies, smaller brands, some multi-billion-dollar brands in here already, but they know this as well. If you look at these brands, some of the biggest thriving brands, they know what the power of a community can do. These are not direct-to-consumer brands. These are direct-to-community brands. These brands are successful because they are growing together with their audience and not at their audience. And what you see happening at the same time is that these brands are built based on their communities, not on their values. So that's what going back to the other slide, if you, for example, look at Oatly, I know that Oatly is speaking here today later. They are growing with their audience, not at their audience. They are not a client of ours, but I can assure you one thing. One thing that Oatly is doing very, very right is that if they send a brief, their tagline, their target audience isn't 20 to 40-year-old women. They know what their audience values. They know what their audience is all about, and they know how to reach them in that way. They identify their audience as how the audience identifies themselves, not based on their demographic, but based on their interests. Takeaway for this: be with your audience, not at them. The social media and the internet is nothing more than a cluster of networks. And a cluster of communities. It isn't a platform. A platform consists of multiple people coming together over shared interests. And as a brand, you need to recognize this, and you should adjust your strategies based on that. So being a community and having a community as a brand is really a commercial superpower. Whether you're a startup or a Fortune 500 business, you should make building community the core of your strategies. That is how you will be successful on these platforms in the long term. So if you're just starting, if you're building a business right now, it's a community that also happens to sell things. So the second principle is ties in well with community and building a community. And very often I talk with marketeers, I talk with big brands, and they forget that these platforms are made for human connection. So as a brand, if you're working on these platforms, you're an intruder. These platforms, social media and the internet is the first place that wasn't made for advertising. So television was made for advertising, radio was very fitting well for advertising, print has done the same. But social media and the internet is made for humans. It's made for human connection. As a brand, you need to understand that, and you should understand that you should add value to those interactions. Social isn't made for brands. And that's the biggest mistake that I still see when looking at these platforms. The biggest mistake that brands still make is they treat it like media and not like social media. They're still seeing social as a distribution channel. And if you look at social media, then it's not about treating it as media. It's normally, it goes like, yeah, we have a campaign, we create a piece of content, and then we distribute it across all those platforms. But you should understand that these platforms are all different. They all have a different culture. TikTok and Instagram Reels, they look the same, they have the same features, but it's different. Another audience is using it. They are using it in different ways. And you should know this, and you should understand how can I contribute to the experience instead of interfering with it. And a big part of this, I think, plays in the fact that we got used to paid media, and now we don't know how to earn it anymore. So we don't know how to earn this attention, and I think a big part is also in the reporting and looking at how do we operate as marketeers. So when we get reports, we question about, okay, 12 million people saw our YouTube pre-roll ad, and the engagement rate or the click-through rate went from 5 to 6%. Yay, that's a 20% increase. We're doing such a good job. At the same time, you can question yourself, maybe those 12 million people thought that the ad was irritating because they had to view it before they could watch their actual video. And that's what our reports don't tell us. Our reports won't tell us if we are creating a piece of content that actually adds value to its audience, that we're actually creating something that people like. If you test a bad video or a bad piece of content against another bad piece of content and a bad creative, one might perform better than the other, but at the end of the day, it's still a bad piece of content. So here it's all about contributing to the experience, not only knowing the community and knowing what your community wants to see, but also looking at, okay, how do they use these platforms? How can I contribute to the experience? And we did this with a campaign for client Malibu. If I can ask you a question, when was the last time that you looked at a billboard ad and spent more than 2 seconds looking at it, even interacting with it and interacting with your phone, and then sharing it with a friend? I know that the Oatly billboards are quite nice. I interacted with those, but at the other ones, it's not that good. And we looked at it. We looked at billboards. We looked at social, and we used an AR campaign to really go deep and really create something that people not only wanted to use, but also wanted to share with their friends. Take a look.
When did you last pay attention to a billboard for more than a few seconds? Doesn't happen often, right? With the launch of Malibu's new summer flavor, we wanted to take billboard ads to the next level, introducing the Malibu AR games in the Netherlands. Play directly on digitally enhanced posters with Snapchat's innovative Marketech, or play on the go via Snapchat. The game scored an average play time of 3 minutes and 32 seconds with high scores shared 44,000 times, together with influencers and social advertising, reaching more than 1.1 million and gaining over 3.2 million impressions. In a year when the in-real-life Malibu Summer Games couldn't take place, we used AR to reinvent out-of-home advertising and set a new standard for the industry.
So I'm already at my last principle. I think the last principle shows that we are really in an ecosystem where the user is first. We're now really living in a user-first world. So we looked at community, focusing on community. We looked at contributing instead of interfering to the user experience. And I think the last part is looking at the actual user and the actual consumer, and understanding that now everyone is a creator. So if you look at our mobile phones and you look at the platforms, we have the creative potential of a Hollywood studio in our pocket. People have more possibilities than ever when it comes to creating content, when it comes to distributing that content. There's never been a better time to have a great idea, because you have an idea, you pick out your phone, you can create it with the most easy apps or the social apps that are there, and you can distribute your idea to hundreds of millions of people. So culture is really created on these platforms by people every day. And the last 2 years, we've seen a major shift to this. I think TikTok started with it, introducing a lot of creative tools. And you already saw music culture, pop culture, everything exploding on that platform. And now you see other platforms doing the same, like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all providing more tools for people to create. And with that happening, we started to see that consumers are now becoming creators. And this has given that power to consumers. So everyone can create their own story. Everyone can create it and share it within their communities, or share it with new communities, or even set up a whole new community or trend. And I'm not only talking about influencers here. These people are just normal consumers, just like you and me. You don't need millions and millions of followers anymore to have an audience online. If you have 200 followers or 300 followers, there are people with 200 or 300 followers who can make a piece of content which just reaches a broad audience. And the power here is really with the consumers. One video of one consumer can make your brand or break your brand. And it gives enormous opportunity on these new platforms. So I just want to show you 2 examples that I just found on, in this sense, on TikTok. And the first one is one about this Japanese hand wash, which made a product which has a little viral potential. And then someone made a video about it, and now it's sold out everywhere and goes crazy viral on TikTok.
I just wanted to say that.
I got it. It works.
And the second video is a Dutch girl. Her name is Jelena. She has like 2,000 followers, mostly her friends. And then she came across this sound on TikTok explaining how to do a hair tutorial. And then she created the hair tutorial, used her favorite shampoo and beauty products, and then the video went viral, 20 million views, 1.9 million likes. And if you look at the video, she's not the only one doing this. There are multiple people using that sound and sharing it with their friends.
I'm gonna teach y'all how to diffuse your hair because I did not know for the longest. First, get your leave-in conditioner, that clump, yes, and as your...
And if you search for the hashtag, these were just two examples. If you search for the hashtag TikTok made me buy it on TikTok, obviously, then you see that the hashtag has 2.6 billion views. And why is this such a big deal? It's a big deal because the next part of social, I believe that this content will be the delivery vehicle for commerce. People discovering products, their favorite products, through their friends, their favorite creators, or even complete strangers. So user-generated content will play such a major role in this. And it will change the whole landscape where shopping and e-commerce are right now. They are a last click thing. The last part of the customer funnel and the customer journey mostly is buying the product through a web shop. But now commerce will move everywhere. So through the whole customer journey and through the whole experience, you will have, at every touch point, you will have commerce integrated. And this content will be the main delivery vehicle for this. Amazon just bought MGM because Amazon knows that entertainment will be their delivery vehicle for commerce later. So what do you need to do as a brand? Most of the things that I show you are born in an organic way. That doesn't mean that you can't play as a brand. So as a brand, you want to inspire your audience to create. It starts with the community. If you have a community that's excited about your product, that is excited about your brand, then the chances are that they are most likely to post about it, to explore the products. Whether it's Apple or Gymshark. Gymshark is one of the top most created brands on TikTok right now, underneath Apple, above Adidas. Why? Because they have their community, but also because they provide the tools for the community to create. They leverage the creativity of their audience, and they acknowledge that the relationship that they have with their audience is not a linear one. It could also go through a friend or a favorite creator or even a brand ambassador. So, or even a complete stranger that just saw, that's just excited about their product. So focus on leverage their creativity. So wrap up, we talked about three things, three main principles. The first being focus on community. Identify your audience in how they identify themselves and then add value to that. So look at their values, identify yourself as a brand. I think the main mistake is that big brands, boardrooms are still caught up in focusing on demographics. Demographics say nothing online. It's about interests, it's about values. Secondly, contribute. These platforms are made for human interaction. They are not made for brands. Contribute to the experience instead of interfering to it. The media plans of 2011 don't work anymore in 2021. So, and the last part is let the creativity of your audience do the work. If you have that community, if you contribute to the experience and provide the tools and to the platform, then acknowledging that everyone is a creator will help you so much in getting the most out of these platforms and really building a brand in this new user-first world. I'm Tim van der Wiel, and I'm looking forward to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Great, very interesting. I think that's not a way a lot of people are thinking right now, so it's great to hear it that way. So can every brand develop a community?
That's a great question. I think there's a difference between desire and just needing something. So if you want something, then and you desire something, then for sure you're a brand that can build a community around the brand. I think the last one, for example, when you look at toilet paper, you just need toilet paper. But that doesn't mean that toilet paper can't have like this second part of purpose or like connect with. So I'm buying this part of toilet paper that's it's called the good roll. It does something for the world, and in that sense you can still, maybe it's not like Apple, but you still can have this connection to a roll of toilet paper.
But that's kind of good for a challenger. Okay, a good roll's a great example, but but if you're a Procter and Gamble selling the 99.9% of the other toilet paper, I mean, do you have advice for a brand like that too?
Yeah, I think if you look at Procter and Gamble, for example, it's not Procter, but what, for example, Dove or the other CPGs are doing, I think it's not about it's about the product, but it's more about okay, what is. Like Dove is really on the self-care part, but they have other values. They're a brand born in the 20th century, but they're mostly focused on, hey, we have values as a brand, we have purpose as a brand. We're focusing around that and building community around it. They're not the direct-to-consumer brands that you see right now, but they're still outperforming other players in that sense.
Okay, so how do you start building a brand? I mean, if you're a small brand, how do you build a community? That might be easier.
Yeah, I think if you're a small brand, I think the core part of it is focusing on what is the purpose of your brand. That's where it all starts. You hear a lot about purpose, but I think the most important part is having that early talks with your consumer. I think if you're just starting out, having just talking with your customers and having this first product out, knowing what they like. If the first people aren't super excited about your brand, then if you're super big, they won't also be. So looking at acknowledging, okay, and the second part is looking at, you have the internet, instead of creating your own community. For example, I showed you all the big brands. Gymshark, they didn't create their own community. They went to the Instagram fitness community and they built the brand on the back of that. So I think that's the core part of being successful on social, isn't you don't create it yourself. You can look at, okay, what communities are already there and how can I leverage those?
Starting with an existing community already on a platform.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. You mentioned this Malibu campaign here. When I'm looking down here, I'm not on my own Insta. Just I'm getting questions from obviously the people out on the internet. Question was, what can you give us some insight into what Malibu's activation did for sales? So like business results instead of just eyeballs and engagement.
So that's always, especially in social. We didn't do the research on what it did exactly for sales. The only thing that I know is that by using a campaign that was like, okay, pre-roll ad, just pushing, we know we got much better results from our customers in the sense of, okay, do they have seen something and use something with the brand that they actually liked? I think that's the core part of it. It was a smaller activation, mostly to show like, hey, what's it from just pushing to creating something that people are excited about.
But so is the next step, though, to try to be able to quantify that more? Is that as it matures as an idea, as a thinking?
For sure, and I think that's one part of quantifying, okay, what does it exactly for sale? When you do it on a bigger scale, I think that's most of it when you see, for example, campaigns, is that you see a campaign which is not fitting for, you see, for example, brand just creating one piece of content, thinking, okay, it will work on a TikTok or Instagram using the same piece of content, just pushing. I think that's the major difference. Looking, okay, if you want to be successful on a platform like Snapchat, you should know how people use that platform, know what people value, and Malibu could have done like this pre-roll thing, push here in your face, buy our new product. But instead, it's about, okay, they could have done that, but instead it's about, okay, now we create this thing and people want to use it. AR, for example, is a place people use it, and they have an intent of using it, and there's no other like commercial thing where people have the attention, really have the engagement, where they interact with a brand in this sense for multiple minutes, and then proactively share it with their friends. There was no incentive in sharing. They just liked the experience, Malibu experience, or it could be any other experience, and they shared it with their friends. And this could be multiple things. It could be also what you're seeing right now with AR is a lot of shopping. So just, for example, sneaker brands, they say, okay, hey, try on the sneaker. And it's replacing the whole part of, it's taking the whole shopping experience to the next level. And I think that's the next step. It's not about pushing, but it's actually about contributing. And for example, with the shopping part, then you can see a real uplift in sales, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned Snapchat. Is Snapchat going to be around in 5 years, or which platforms are going to be around in 5 years?
I think Facebook has a major problem. So I believe that in 4 to 5 years, when we look at Facebook, we think, okay, what's happened there? They have like the antitrust law. I believe that Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp will be separate companies in the near future. I think it will be good for the whole ecosystem. At the same time,
at their own desire, separate companies, or due to regulation?
They will be they will be broken up.
They will be broken up.
I expect that. I think that TikTok is a major headache for Facebook at the moment, and it's already at the level of Instagram when you look at monthly active users. And I believe the next computing platform will be AR. So the next computing platform after our phones, we will go to AR interfaces. And I believe that Snapchat at this moment has the best cards in one of the best decks of cards to really be a main player in that. So it will be super interesting. I think TikTok is the place right now. It's really where culture is born, where a lot of communities, it's not only dances. It's if you are searching for communities as a brand, I would really search on, for example, I would start at TikTok. That's where the culture is created. Instagram, same, is also involved around passion and creativity, but my guess would be TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat.
Interesting.
And Twitch.
And Twitch. Huh? Does I'm going to move up past that for a second. Is the brands you talked about the life cycle, 75 years, 15 years? These bigger, more classical, old school brands. Where are they on this journey? Do they understand their younger consumers, or is it hard for them to market to savvier people?
I think it's not only about their younger consumer. I think it's all, especially what the pandemic showed us, is that these platforms and the attention that we spend on these platforms, it's about the whole world. This is not a place on, hey, where should I reach Gen Z? No, these platforms are changing our lives. It's changing the way how we interact with each other, how we interact with the world. That's the part with the remote control. I think that what these bigger brands don't understand, and it's coming. I believe in a couple of years, like if you, for example, look at Wish, the shopping app. I don't think a lot of people know it, but Wish is, I think, one of the most best after, I think, Shopify, one of the biggest competitors to Amazon. They're like Alibaba, but then for the Western market. They spend nothing, like their full budget, almost on Facebook and Instagram ads and influencers. They did like this one logo tee in the NBA, I think it was. But besides that, it's all digital. And I think brands understand that digital is a thing and that social is a thing, but still half of spend goes into search. So I think they're starting to understand, but it's still too late. And I think they need to move fast to keep up.
I mean, okay, so the world that you paint, I mean, it's probably going to happen, and it seems very, logical. But your second point about, don't interfere, don't be a traditional advertiser that interrupts. Is there not a conflict between the message that people want to give, which is, spend a second thinking about this, even if you're not a member? I mean, how can most brands not interrupt? Maybe that's the question.
It's, again, a good question. I think what it mostly is about is first recognizing that nobody cares about your ad.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the first, like, knowing we put a lot of time and money and effort into it, but I think the first step is knowing that people go through their feed with super speed, and they don't stop. Maybe if you put I always got told, like, oh, yeah, Nike's putting out these amazing ads and they work so much. Yeah, because it's an amazing story and it's entertaining and people want to watch it.
It's de facto content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then 95% of what's made is not that. So knowing, okay, how can you, I know the Byron Sharp thing and it's still about reaching the masses, but like in the beginning, like it's not your 100% budget. It's like, but how can you put like 20%, 30% of your budget in creating something that people actually want to see and actually want to use? And that's part of it. And that's really, I think, the trick now for these platforms is knowing every platform is different and how can you really contribute to the experience, because your whole, it will just improve. You will see it directly in your results.
Well, great. That's a great place to end there. So you're not talking about 100% revolution. You're talking about a piece of your spend, and your focus should go towards this sort of new way of community-based thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim, thanks very much for coming here, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.